Good morning again.
There you go. Hello. Hello, Jim. Hello, Kent. Hello. Let's see, we're getting a few people on. We've got Mr. Dakin joining us. Hello, Liz. I see Nora coming on pretty soon.
That's good.
Yeah.
Good to
Always
see.
good to have our speaker.
Yeah. Speaker, introducer, and now we just need the music committee. Unless Steve Dakin wants to sing our welcome song for us today.
That'd be one way.
Hey, this is Nora.
Hi, Nora.
There we go. Looks like I'm
Hi.
on. Nice to see everyone. Thanks so much
Thank
for
you
the
for
invitation.
joining us.
There you are. Nice.
This is great. Wonderful. I'll get my name changed from self-help so I can have a real name up. See there.
You can name yourself whatever you want, but Nora would be good.
There we go.
I may
So
have to
you
leave
have a
early.
PowerPoint. Nora?
I do have a PowerPoint. So should we try that out? See
Okay.
if it'll work for us. Let's see.
I
I'll
just
request.
put it on multiple, so go ahead and see.
All right. Now, when I do
There you
this, I
go.
can't see you, but can you see the presentation okay?
Right now it's saying that you're, yep, there we go.
There
Fantastic.
it is. Yep. Yep.
Nora,
It'll work.
Yes.
Nora, are your grandparents going to be on?
No, they won't join us. I'm sure they would have loved to, but it was one thing more than I coordinated today.
Okay, fine. Your parents?
No.
Okay.
Oh, great. Well, you can see my screen okay. And I did not include any video. I was having trouble with my video today. So if anybody wants to watch a YouTube video later, I can circulate it either in the chat or afterwards.
Good. John Christie's
you can
here.
share
Now
that
everything
link.
is good.
Yeah. Nora, you can share that YouTube link with me and I can share it with the club members.
Fantastic. That sounds great, Karen. Why don't I send that to you right after
I'm
the
going
meeting
to
today?
Fine. All right, I'm going to go ahead. Oh, there's the chat. Okay. And let me get this on. Oh.
Looks like we're up to 37 participants. We'll give it another minute or so. Probably go ahead and get started if that's all right with everyone. Welcome everyone to the August 31st meeting of the Rotary Club of Ames. We appreciate all of our club members, and we also have a special guest visiting us today. So Steve Dakin, our district governor, is joining us today. Good to see you, Steve.
Thank you.
And yep, and Steve has asked for a couple of minutes to speak. How about if we just go ahead first and welcome everyone to our club meeting. And we're happy to have John Christie from our music committee start us off and singing the welcome song to everyone. So go ahead and John, if you want to unmute yourself and give us a song, then we'll come back to some of our consolations and announcements.
All right. Thanks, Chad. Good afternoon. And to our visitors and guests, welcome to you from Ames Rotary, Nevada, London, or Gay Paris, from far off lands or the USA. We're glad that you are here today. Come back again whenever you're near. Join us and then we'll make it clear. Around the world you'll always be. Welcome at Rotary.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. Always good to hear from our music committee. Couple of announcements here. And actually, first, we're going to start off with some of our family that might need some extra thoughts. Karen, if you want to put that slide back up for Ted. So it's with sadness that we mention the passing of Ted Tosselby. I unfortunately did not have the pleasure of meeting Ted, but Ted at 94 years old was a 55-year member of our club. Ted recently passed away, so we certainly express our thoughts and prayers out to his wife, Marilyn Hanson, and their family. In addition to that, we certainly continue to keep the storm victims in our thoughts. And those were storms here in Iowa. As rough as we all had it around here, it sounds like Cedar Rapids got it a bit worse. And so just continuing to remember that there are people continuing to struggle after our Midwest hurricane, and also thoughts for those victims that were in the path of Hurricane Laura. I was telling someone that I have a new appreciation, and having never lived through a tropical hurricane, I cannot imagine after what we've been through, right? What would it be like to had 150-mile-an-hour winds for several hours? So our thoughts go out to them as well. And also just in our community, extra thoughts for those people and businesses that continue to be impacted by COVID and our university community. So just a lot of things to be reflective about this morning. If you'll join me and just take a moment. All right, thank you. And we have a couple of announcements, and then I'm going to let District Governor Steve Dakin speak for a moment. Karen, if you want to go to our slide about the masks. Yeah, so here we go. Exciting news. Get a mask, a Rotary People of Action mask, and in turn, we will give a mask kit to Ames Community School District children. So what we decided as your board of directors is that we could purchase these masks for our club at a cost of $5 each. We are offering them for sale to our members for $10 each. And we have an awesome opportunity because we're going to profit from this, and we're going to donate all of those profits to the Ames Community School District children. And we're going to be able to buy a significant number of mask kits that will be far more than even just the mask that we purchased here. So this will be a very exponential impact. Each kit can make 10 to 15 cotton face masks. So please email or call Karen if you're interested. Unfortunately, we only have 50 of these masks, so they may go quickly. Let her know. And she said she would be more than happy to jot that down. We actually have those, I think, are being mailed out to our club here soon. And then we will make sure to coordinate delivery. I think Karen is excited to be able to take the lead on that as well. So, and thank you for the correction on our Ted Toastleib, I believe was the right pronunciation. So my apologies. In addition to the masks, we have another announcement. It's very exciting, but the African region has now been certified wild polio free. That's a significant milestone in the Rotary Club, in Rotary International battle against the eradication of polio. And last week there were no new wild cases. So some good news. Great news on the polio front this week. And now I'm going to turn it over to our district governor, Steve Dakin, who has a couple comments, and then we'll come back and have our program for the day. Go ahead and take it away, Steve.
Hey, thank you, Chad. I want to say I'm at home with a slow connection, so be patient with me. I love this mask kit. I'm glad I tuned in today. Thank you, Carolyn. This is a great. Get me on that list. I want to talk about that so I can pass this around the district. What I wanted to get on today about was I had never heard of Hot Meals USA. That's from Kearney, Nebraska Rotary Club, and the Salvation Army at Tama asked them to come last week and serve hot meals. So I went over there on Saturday and Sunday and worked. Saturday we served 1,500 meals in an hour and a half. Sunday we ran out we served 1,000 meals in an hour. And I saw Rotarians from all over the district there helping. And that was, even from Marshalltown. And Marshalltown got hit hard again, and they weren't recovered yet from 2 years ago from the EF3 winds that they had. And Mary told me, the president, that they had 3 times as many trees down this time as last time. I also went over and helped do meals over there, or hand out boxes in Cedar Rapids Sunday. And also a week ago, I worked with past Assistant Governor Michelle Bell from 5970. And everything you've heard about Cedar Rapids is very much true. And so I sent out a letter and encouraging everybody to help and donate to help the Rotary clubs in District 6000. So that's why this Hot Meals USA, if you haven't heard of it, look at it. Anybody can ask it to come. They can serve up to 8,000 meals a day. So I just don't forget that, put that in your back pocket for future needs. So that's all I really have. Thank you there, Chad.
Thank you. No, that's great. Good to hear about Hot Meals USA and affirm how much help our fellow Iowans need. So with that, at this time, I'm actually going to invite Liz back to unmute and introduce our program speaker for the day. Liz?
Thank you. Um, this program is going to be an example of how our Rotary dollars work to make the world better, and also to show you your dollars have been well spent. So once again, although Nora has been here with us for a couple of meetings in her past, I'm glad to welcome her here today. She was our ambassadorial scholar, which was different than our global scholars. She studied in Ireland in 2011 and 12 at Trinity College, and she studied international peace studies, and her thesis, which was required, was political tourism and peace building in the post-violent societies, and focused on West Belfast. While she was in Dublin, she organized a 3-guest speaker series on trade aid in Africa through the Dublin Central Rotary Club, but she gave a lot of presentations on the Iowa caucuses and the Iowa State Fair. So she is currently the executive director of Self-Help International, which is a continuation of the kind of service that Rotary really promotes. It's an international nonprofit founded in Waverly, Iowa, works to alleviate hunger by assisting the rural poor and small-scale farmers and related enterprises. She focuses on development and sustainability and to improve the quality of life in West Africa, in Ghana, and in Nicaragua, in Central America. She also, for a point of interest, during her Rotary scholarship year, she's a softball aficionado, so she volunteered to play softball at one of the Irish clubs, and so a Rotary member connected her with the softball league. She met on that team a man by the name of David Murphy. Subsequently, they have been married, and David is now living in Des Moines or West Des Moines with Nora. So there are other things that happen besides our scholars doing exceptional work. They also meet exceptional people that come into their lives. For those of you who live in Green Hills, Nora's grandparents are Kelly and Irene Tobin. And I'm sure that if you see them out on the walking path or anywhere, tell them what a remarkable granddaughter they have. So Nora, I'm going to turn it over to you now and let you take charge.
Thank you so much, Liz, for that fantastic introduction. It is just such a pleasure to be back with all of you today, and appreciate you making it possible to gather virtually and be able to see so many friendly faces that I've gotten to know over the years since I graduated from Iowa State. And as Liz said, went off and saw the world, and then got to come back here to Iowa to keep making a difference. And so today I wanted to tell you specifically a little bit about a Growing Healthy Food, Growing Healthy Children program, and then we'll have time to open it up to questions. But there's a lot of different work that we get to do day to day at Self-Help International. So we're a team of 5 based here in Iowa, and then about 30 based around the world. We've got program staff in Nicaragua that are from Nicaragua, know the language, know the culture, do phenomenal work at sustainable community development in rural communities. And in Ghana, in West Africa, we work with a team of somewhere between 50 and 30 any given day. We're on the last day of a cycle where all of our local staff is locally hired, but we also have a partnership with the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, the local version of the USDA, where they reassign some of their extension agents to work with self-help on an annual basis, which is a great collaboration because they find that oftentimes they don't have the resources for their people to get out into the field. And so we're able to work hand in hand collaboratively to get out into the field a little further each year. And so we've got a lot of pseudo staff that we work with on a day in and day out basis that do just phenomenal work. And so generally speaking, we're working in improving quality of life in rural communities, specifically focused on food and nutrition security. So I'm going to see if I can share my screen here. We tested it in advance and it was working. So can somebody jump off mute? I won't be able to see you during this time, and let me know if that's up there now.
Yes.
Excellent. So this is a presentation on growing healthy food and growing healthy children. And let's see if it's going to let me advance the slides. There we go. So Self-Help's mission is to alleviate hunger by helping people help themselves. And as Liz said, Self-Help was founded in Waverly, Iowa back in 1959. So has been around Iowa for more than 60 years, working to alleviate hunger with our overseas partners. So we're in Iowa, in Ghana, and in Nicaragua. And we'll zoom in a little bit there. You can see we work in Nicaragua on empowering women and girls, improving agriculture, and promoting clean water and sanitation. And in Ghana, in West Africa, in empowering women and girls, improving agriculture, and fighting malnutrition. And so those all work hand in hand. And they also will sound familiar because they're very similar with Rotary's 6 areas of service, collectively promoting peace. We work a lot with fighting disease, providing clean water, maternal child health, literacy and basic education, and community and economic development. So with this program in particular, I'm going to dive straight in and then leave some time for questions there. But everything that we do is focused on how do we take best practices and put them into action. So some of you might be familiar with the work of Norman Borlaug and the World Food Prize laureates, and a number of those World Food Prize laureates have served as honorary board members for Self-Help International over the years. And we've got a great collaboration with the World Food Prize. And, you know, they gather all of these leading experts in food security here in Iowa every year. And we're able to work with them and then take those best practices and put them into action. So every October, I think back to more than a decade ago when I walked into Liz Beck's office at the University Honors Program and told her what I wanted to do with my life as a freshman. And she said, well, we've got to connect you with the World Food Prize. And before long, I was able to intern there. And it just is a really cool way to see full circle how I've been able to keep working with World Food Prize and be able to take some of those lessons and really put them into action, working hand in hand with Iowans over the years. With this program in particular, Self-Help had been running a school feeding program for a number of years in rural Ghana. And what we were seeing is we were measuring the heights and the weights of the children who were typically 5 to 7 years old. And we're seeing that there was chronic stunting taking place in rural villages in the Ashanti region of Ghana. And it was tracking with the national statistics of about 1 in 4 children under the age of 5 being stunted due to malnutrition. So we partner with mothers and with families to provide education and resources that empower women and improve nutrition in that first 1,000 days of life. To address the issue today of hunger, but also the long-term issue of chronic malnutrition and making sure that babies are nourished in that first 1,000 days when it's most critical. Now, through the school feeding program, we're addressing children that were 5 to 7 years old when they were entering kindergarten. And so you're missing that time when that crucial brain development is happening. But what we were able to see from that data was where are the patterns taking place of chronic malnutrition and where is it worst and most exacerbated. And because our local staff had a good rapport with the community, they were able to share with the PTA what the findings were and share that chronic malnutrition was a problem across the board. They did food intake studies that showed that in the dry season, when there aren't any rains coming and when it's hard to grow food, almost every family in the region was food insecure. So moms, by and large, would be feeding their children to the best of their abilities. What that meant is any expecting moms that already had children were typically not consuming enough food themselves. And so we worked on making sure that we're educating the moms about the importance of their own nutrition during pregnancy and in the time that they were nursing, as well as nourishing their infants. So we were looking around for different ways to be able to make a larger scale impact and really reach moms and babies in that first 1,000 days. Now, because we were working with the school feeding program, we gained the trust of the moms and the PTA members, and we're then able to start working separately with the moms to hold these educational sessions. And so what we found was just through education alone, exclusive breastfeeding significantly increased. And that meant that babies were getting more nutrition. But oftentimes the barrier for the moms was that they couldn't necessarily produce enough breast milk. And so it was important that we introduced an intervention that enabled mom to get enough nutrition now, as well as long-term improve the household food security. So Dr. Mary Jane Oakland is a board member of Self-Help and retired faculty of nutrition at Iowa State University. And she's a key advisor who helped create this program. So what we were seeing is that, you know, no matter where in the world a child is born, whether it's here in Des Moines, whether it's in rural Ghana, to prevent stunting, there are 3 major things that need to take place. One is that calorie and protein requirements must be met in that prenatal development. One is that nutritional health is important during that pregnancy and lactation. And then babies really do need to be exclusively breastfed in the first 6 months. What we've seen in some countries where there's a really safe water source and their access to resources is that sometimes formula is a way of nourishing a baby, but in resource poor areas where formula is both expensive and difficult to mix with safe water, it's just not really a practical solution. So when possible, that exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months is really crucial. So Grace Marquess is a former faculty member at Iowa State University, and so is Essie Colcraft, who is now a professor at the University of Ghana. And Grace and Essie and Dr. Mary Jane Oakland had all worked together at Iowa State on several projects. Well, now Grace and Essie had worked together on a study that was an integrated agricultural nutrition intervention that improved children's diets. And they were able to do that as a randomized trial in Ghana, which is unique. It's very rare that you can actually carry out a randomized control trial focused on nutrition in that first 1,000 days. But they were able to prove that when you can improve the sources of food security through agricultural interventions, as well as nutrition education, specifically for moms, you can move the needle. Well, there we were, Mary Jane and I and Essie, sitting on the top of a hotel balcony and meeting in Ghana about this study that they had just completed that showed that there was a difference that was being made if you can combine these elements. And Dr. Oakland and I looked at each other, and Self-Help was already working in agriculture and nutrition. Self-Help was already working with moms to improve food security. And so we had all of those common elements that we could replicate the study. This was a massive study that was very well funded by much larger NGOs and universities than what Self-Help was doing. But we could take those lessons and put them into action. And so that's what we got to work doing. So we focused on being able to provide intensive nutrition education, monthly monitoring of weights and growths, providing high protein supplements, home visits and one-on-one counseling. And then we do recognize that we are well suited to work in agriculture and in nutrition. We are not healthcare specialists, we are not doctors, and so we work closely with the Ministry of Health and the Ghana Health Service nurses to implement some of the emergency interventions and refer moms and babies who needed extra care to those nutritional services. This is a program that's been going on for about 2.5 years now, and we are seeing long-term behavior change as a result of these interventions. So lactation education and coaching for new moms makes a huge difference. Making sure that we've got demonstration plots and inputs for diversified nutrient-rich crops. What that means is not just eating the staples of maize on a daily basis, but also introducing green leafy vegetables or orange flesh sweet potatoes or high protein maize, different biofortified crops that make sure that they get more nutrition into the daily diets. Promoting the production and consumption of eggs in particular as a source of animal source protein, and then working with recipe demonstrations. So if you tell a mom to cook something and she doesn't know how to cook it or hasn't worked with that food before, you're not going to get very far. So those recipe demonstrations are really crucial. and then creating those partnerships that are going to lead to lasting change. So this is Felicia on the upper left-hand side, and you can see her cultivating orange flesh sweet potatoes. And it's pretty common to grow white sweet potatoes in northern Ghana, but not the orange kind that we're used to eating when we think of sweet potatoes here. And the orange ones have higher vitamin A content, which is really crucial for childhood nutrition. So that's in the upper left, an example of one of the moms cultivating sweet potatoes, which she'd never done before. And then in the lower right, you can see another mom with some porridge that she was taking home to her family and some hard-boiled eggs that she was going to be able to feed to her child to make sure that that child's brain and bodies are growing on a healthy trajectory. Here we have an example of mashed up sweet potato in one of our recipe demonstrations. And you can add in powdered milk for additional nutrients. But what the families were demonstrating was that, you know, we can taste test this and see if it works. And so the moms were a little bit hesitant. As adults, oftentimes we are a little bit hesitant about, you know, what do I think of this? And of course, as humans, we want to eat food that we like the taste of. So those recipe demonstrations are crucial. But we gathered all of the moms and the babies together and mixed up those sweet potatoes, and the babies tried them and loved them. And so that endorsement goes a really long way in convincing a mom that it's worth it to continue preparing this food and growing this food. And then here we have Jamilatu, and she is just one of the most amazing women. She had 2 children when she joined the program, and she'd given birth in the community the first 2 times. And so she knew what to expect. And to get to the hospital, the nearest healthcare facility is about a 45-minute-hour walk away from the village. And there just really isn't much else in terms of transportation available. And so if you've had a couple of kids already, you know what to expect. You've given birth in the village. It can be confusing why you would take the time to go to the prenatal care, or why you would want to invest, you know, limited time that you have to cultivate food, to do all the chores, to take care of your kids, to walk all of that way for a prenatal care checkup and walk back. But she was convinced by the self-help staff that she should go ahead and do her prenatal care checkups. And as a result, she was informed in advance that she was expecting twins, which was a great relief to know in advance that she was expecting twins. And so when the day came that the twins were on their way, she waited by the roadside for about 3 hours, and no taxi passed by at any point. So she did end up giving birth to 2 very healthy babies, Emmanuel and Emanuela, in the rural community, and then was nursing them, and the babies were growing really well. And so as she returned to the nutrition education classes, she was paid a visit in advance by one of Self-Help's nutritionists. And he asked how the babies were doing, and she said, well, one is growing well and the other one is struggling with nursing. And he said, well, let me show you a trick. And he took the baby's foot and he flicked it. And when the baby's foot was flicked, the mouth opened and the baby resumed nursing and began eating better from that day forward. Well, her husband saw this and thought, maybe these self-help people know what they're doing. And so he wanted to investigate further. So he went with her to the next nutrition education session. And it so happened that that day they were talking about family finance and the importance of savings and opening a bank account, and some strategies that even rural women could use to be able to access a bank account, even those who were not formally educated or weren't familiar with written English as far as signing those contracts and things like that to open an account. And so he walked away from that training convinced that it was crucial that his family opened a savings account and they were able to better provide for their children moving forward. And then he did that. So it really is a holistic approach to working with the entire family. After he went, he told some of the other dads in the area, and some of the other dads started coming to the sessions as well. And so it really does have that ripple effect. And our goal is to work with the entire family to improve that nutrition and food security all the way around. And today, these 2 babies are on a very healthy growth trajectory, which is very encouraging for babies that, you know, it would have been a real struggle if not for that little extra help. It's not that the parents didn't want what's best for their children or want to employ all of that education. It's just that they didn't necessarily have access to the necessary resources before. So that is at a glance how this program works to really improve nutrition. And so we have been tracking the information. It's different than an academic study. It's based on an academic study, but because we're not doing this for academic purposes, we're practitioners, we'll make changes and adjust the program as soon as we start to see a change in the trends. So we know that during cocoa harvesting season, moms need extra support because it's a very limited time period that they're cultivating all of their crops and getting that cash crop and the cash flow through. And so oftentimes meals are skipped during that time, and there's a need for additional nutritional interventions then. But what we really would like to do is be able to both use this to scale up our services across rural Ghana, as well as to share with others. So I know many of you are very involved with a number of international nonprofits. We know that this is what works for us in this very specific rural context. But if there's other organizations that you're working with that are interested in this type of intervention, we'd be glad to share what we've learned so that your colleagues are able to implement something similar, because it's working. It's making a big difference. And if you're interested in learning more about nutrition in the first 1,000 days in particular, I'd recommend Roger Thoreau's book on the first 1,000 days. It's a study that he did in Chicago, in Guatemala, and in Uganda that tracks, how we all are very similar, but face different challenges to that human nutrition. And if anybody's interested in volunteering, we've got a number of different means of engaging that we'd love to work with you on. So I really appreciate all of your time and attention today, and would love to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Nora. What a very informative talk. We do have one question here that I have from the chat that I'm going to ask you. Where does the faith community, sex education, engagement of men, fathers, dads fit into the works of self-help?
That is a great question. So we work in communities that are, in the communities we're working in with this particular intervention right now, split Christian and Muslim. And so it was really important to us that we started with working through the leaders in the community to find out what they wanted and what was most appropriate for them. So what self-help does is we partner with Ghana Health Service to be able to bring in nurses that provide family planning training to the entire community. Now, from there, we listen to the local leadership based on whether they want that to be for the women in the community only or to the whole families. By and large, the decisions that they make are that they want the whole family to be involved in that education process so that the men are involved too. Oftentimes, women aren't necessarily in a position to make decisions for themselves about family planning, and it's important that the men in their lives are engaged in that as well. And so they talk a lot about birth spacing and spacing out in the same way that you space out crops so they have room to grow, spacing out births so that children have time to grow and moms' bodies have time to recover. And then they do bring in at times people who come into the community to provide mobile birth control clinics and things like that. It is a sensitive topic in Ghana, but we do know that there is a lot of unsafe and illegal abortions provided in rural communities, especially among teenage girls who really feel like they don't have choices. So what we're working on specifically is prevention and helping women and girls access the resources they need to make informed decisions for their families about what's best for them. So it looks different community to community, and what we want to do is introduce accurate, reliable, scientific-based information so that people are in a position to both learn what's best for them and then take action and be able to figure out, where do I go from here? What works best for my family? There are a lot of horror stories of what can happen if women get birth control without the consent of their husbands, and it can be very dangerous to them to go through that path. And so we work to navigate that community scale, building up that trust and making sure that there are options available to women and they know how to access them and can decide what's best for themselves.
Thank you. Can you still hear me? Because
I can, yeah.
okay. So my Zoom screen is gray and it may not be refreshing. So if you have asked a question in the chat, I'm just going to ask you to unmute yourself and ask that question directly to Nora, if you don't mind. I'm not seeing any now, but I'm not seeing much of anything right now. So
I do see one question in the chat here from Liz Beck asking,
thank you.
can volunteers be trained to travel to Ghana and Nicaragua? And the answer is yes, absolutely. As you can imagine right now, all of our travel is on hold somewhat indefinitely. The borders are closed in Ghana right now. They are open in Nicaragua, but there is widespread community transmission in all 3 countries. So we look forward to reopening travel once we're assured that it is both safe for us to go and that it would not cause any disruption in the community, particularly if an outbreak occurs immediately after we've been there, whether it was from our interactions or not. We really want to be respectful and make sure that we don't unintentionally cause any harm with that travel. But we are always looking for skilled volunteers. So anybody who has grant writing experience, communications experience, videography, a desire to speak to other Rotary clubs or other groups to help us spread the word, or advise on specific areas such as agriculture, such as nutrition, such as in particular pedagogy for teaching, whether that's adult education or working with teen girls. We also have a teen girls club that we work with that's an outgrowth of our women's microcredit program that's designed to keep girls in school longer. And we do a lot of puberty education with the girls, as well as reading and literacy courses. And so all of those are very welcome in both Ghana and Nicaragua. In Nicaragua, for any skilled advisors, we encourage people who already speak Spanish, but there's certainly scope for translation. Dr. William Edwards is a retired faculty member at Iowa State, and he leads our Nicaragua efforts along with our Nicaragua team. And Rod Bodholt is a videographer in Ames who does a lot of Iowa State's football and basketball videography, and he's done some video development for us. So lots of different skills that can be contributed, whether that's domestically or through travel. And then when we do run trips, we try and include different cultural events and some orientation. There's some great orientation around the danger of a single story. And I would be remiss if I suggested that all of Ghana is rural or poor. There are a lot of families that are doing very well for themselves. And there's a lot of diversity within the country itself. So just like in the US, we have New York City and we've got more rural and urban poor areas. The same is true in most countries around the world. So we really want to make sure that we're not unintentionally painting a story of all people needing help. And also we work to walk alongside and build goodwill and better friendships among the communities that we serve, recognizing that there's a mutual benefit to that cross-cultural interaction.
From Louis Bannett, I don't know if you can see in the chat, he has a question about the small tractors.
Yeah, great question. I knew I recognized your name when I saw you on here, so thanks for joining us. We did our first, gosh, it was 30 years, from 1959 to the late 80s. Self-Help used to manufacture tractors in Waverly, Iowa, and ship them all over the world. And they were small tractors that you could drive up the aisle, and a lot of the United Methodist churches would be very involved with those projects. And so used to manufacture these small tractors and ship them all over the world. And a lot of the engineering faculty at Iowa State was involved in that production. And in the late 80s, a couple of things shifted. One was that John Deere and others were producing machinery around the world. Another was that it was just very cost prohibitive to build and ship them. It was about $10,000 to build one here and ship it to a missionary around the world. Usually we were working through missionaries. And you could buy 2 or 3 tractors overseas for that same amount that were just as appropriate for farmers to use. And oftentimes that would be better because there was more of a logistical supply chain. We would encounter barriers because missionaries aren't always trained mechanics. And so once the machine was there, it's important that there's knowledge of how to maintain it and access to the parts to keep it maintained. And so we found that we were better suited to engage more in agricultural education training. So it was in the late 80s that Dr. Borlaug invited us to Ghana to start working there and said, you know, let's take the rest of the tractors and you're all Iowa farmers. Let's figure out how we implement extension style training and be able to work more with farm families in that capacity. So that's been the shift since the late 80s, early 90s. Great
Nora,
question.
talk
Yes.
about being an urban girl in agriculture
Yeah.
and an international passion that you have.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jeff. So I appreciated that I went to Iowa State University because there's so much of agriculture implemented into the work that we're doing. So today there's a global resource systems major through the College of Ag that I would have loved to have had when I was going through. There are a number of us that did political science and international studies as a way of addressing that and kind of bridging that gap. But I would not pretend to be an agricultural expert. I have too much respect for farmers to do that. And so what I get to do is coordinate amongst people who are ag economists and are farmers and are agricultural experts and link them. And it is truly amazing to me that farmers can travel with us to Nicaragua and sit in a co-op meeting in rural Nicaragua and not speak any Spanish and know exactly what is happening, because farmers are farmers around the world, and farmers are concerned about weather patterns and about how to, you know, improve their yields, and learning from farmers. And quite frankly, they will not and should not listen to City Girl on agricultural practices. Farmers are going to listen to other farmers. And so we've really appreciated the connections with PFI, based in names Practical Farmers of Iowa. And last year, we were able to bring our country directors over from Ghana and Nicaragua to tour some farms around Iowa in collaboration with Practical Farmers to really identify some of those linkages. So I appreciate that question, because I am from the city and am not a farmer, but get to connect with farmers on a daily basis.
Thank you.
Nora, it looks like we have a question from Tom Walsh. How many families are impacted by self-help in each country or region?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it varies year to year with the scale. And so sometimes we've got multiple stakeholders within a family, where a mom might be part of a nutrition program and dad is part of the ag program and daughter is in the Teen Girls Club. And sometimes an individual is separate from, or just one person in the family is engaged with self-help. So we're working with roughly 1,000 families in each country on an annual basis. We're working with about 400 teen girls in Ghana, about 400 moms who are small business owners in particular in Ghana and Nicaragua, 200 mothers in the nutrition program, and roughly 500 farmers in the two countries. So actually, one of our biggest needs right now is a database that could enable that tracking. We're really struggling to figure out how we track family style intervention, because we're working in communities, and so we can track on the individual basis, but we'd love to be able to see and analyze what happens when multiple individuals in a family are engaged in the programs. Our program staff on the ground has a pretty good sense of it, and anecdotally they report that the more members of a family we're working with, the better the family does long term. We'd really love to be able to back that up with the data. And so looking for some help with building out a database that can do that, or referrals to different ones. So that is high on our overseas team's priority lists.
Jim Patton, did you have a question? If so, if you could unmute yourself. If not, that's fine.
Oh, the question I had, first of all, we're glad Nora's with us. I was wondering if she could repeat the author of that book, The First 1,000 Days.
Absolutely. So it is The First 1,000 Days by Roger Thoreau. and he went to University of Iowa. He's at the Chicago Council at the moment. But Roger Thoreau, Thurow.
Great, thank you.
My pleasure.
And I don't see any other questions. Anyone else have a question for Nora today?
Yes, Nora, Jeff again. What linkages, if any, do you see between self-help, extension and outreach, and 4-H?
Ooh, so I love that question. My uncle, Jim Tobin, traveled with us, and he was very active with National 4-H, and so was able to set up a meeting for us with Ghana 4-H. And Ghana actually has a developed 4-H program that's funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And so we were able to collaborate with them. A lot of their ag education mirrors our youth agricultural clubs. We don't officially call them 4-H clubs, but the members of our staff that manage our youth agricultural teams are former staff members of Ghana 4-H. So they employ the same methodology. And we really see that if you can spark that excitement about agriculture and work through youth, they'll take those lessons home to mom and dad. And mom and dad tend to receive them really well. And we saw that take place here in the US as well. Another aspect and element of that is, I gotta tell you, when I was in 4-H, I could not stand the record keeping process. I thought it was ridiculous. I now harp every day about the importance of record keeping so that we can analyze what our results are and look back and figure out, okay, what did we do and how did that work and how does that inform where we're going forward now? So a lot of our ag training focuses on record keeping and the importance of record keeping. So I think there's just a huge synergy with 4-H and the 4-H style and model of practical education. In both Ghana and Nicaragua, oftentimes agriculture and being sent to the field is considered a punishment. And so that means that oftentimes it's like, people will say, I'm not employed. And we say, well, aren't you growing food? And they're like, oh yes, but like farming isn't necessarily considered a career. And we're really working to encourage people to think of farming as a business and how they can take on farming as a business that is productive and a great choice and a great option for families to pursue.
Thank you.
Absolutely. These are such great questions. Thank you. Anyone else?
Anything else for Nora?
Well, I know that there are a lot of great efforts to support around the world that are really important. If any of you are interested in figuring out how you can make a difference with self-help, I would love to talk to you more about ways that you can donate your time or your talents. So I will make sure to get my email and contact information over to Karen to be able to share with everybody.
Nora, thank you. Thank you from the Rotary Club of Ames. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for being such a good presenter and prompting some of these awesome interactive questions. But we know you have a lot on your plate, so just to carve out time for us means a lot to us to help share, and hopefully we can give something more back to you. So thank you. Thanks again, Nora. And thanks, Liz, for coordinating that. You know, next week is Labor Day. Oh, there we go. There's a picture of Kelsey's coworker today. So if we all could be so lucky as to have that coworker, huh? That'd make life a lot easier. So that's awesome. Look at the Rotary screen too. Baby's helping. Next week is Labor Day. No regular club meeting, but we will come back together on September 14th. And actually Chris Knapp from our District 6000 team will be with us on the 14th talking about the Rotary Foundation. And also Jeff Johnston reminded me that if you've been on his committee, he is chairing our Centennial Celebration Committee. It's a big year for us. And we are excitedly working towards a March 1st, 2021 celebration. And Jeff just kind of gave us a heads up that get ready to get re-energized because he's going to be reaching out and to reconvene the group and do some additional planning. So if you've been a part of that group, just look out from Jeff sending out some invitation for re-engagement. And thought for the day. So there's a lot of stuff going on. Some of it's a little too heavy. Although when you look at a picture of a baby on a screen with a Rotary meeting in front of them, then that's pretty cool. But our thought for the day comes to us from Anne Frank, who said, "Whoever is happy will make others happy too." So I like that quote. I think that's good for all of us to keep in mind. I'm assuming the opposite of that would be also, affecting others. So hey, if you're not happy, that might be affecting others around you too. So in the tough times, all we can control is how we react to the things that are going on around us. So that's all we had today. If you would, then join me in the four-way test, as Karen will put that up on our screen, and we'll end our meeting for the day. In all that we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? So thank you all. Have a great day, great week.
Slow connection.